is in Pennsylvania tonight rallying support for his tax reform plan. This is the president's third visit to the Keystone State since taking office earlier this year.
Have you ever wondered what happens when a global powerhouse like C allows faces a massive trade war? How does an iconic brand that's been revolutionizing farming machinery for decades get caught in the crossfire of political policies? Well, that's what happened when Trump's trade tariffs hit claims, and the results weren't pretty for the agriculture world. Stick around, because we're diving into how this could impact both the farming industry and the global machinery market in ways you might not expect. Let's start with the basics. Claas US is a German multinational company that specializes in agricultural machinery. If you're not familiar with it, you've likely seen their equipment at work on farms, from combine harvesters to tractors. Claas has built a reputation for producing some of the most advanced farming equipment in the world. They're known for pushing the boundaries of technology with things like automated systems, precision farming tools, and some seriously powerful machines that help farmers work smarter, not harder. Founded way back in 1913, Claas is a company with deep roots in the farming industry. The company was started by August, Klaus and Horace Winkel, Germany. What began as a small machine shop grew into a global leader in agricultural machinery. Over the years, they've expanded their operations, now producing cutting-edge machinery that's sold in over 140 countries. Their iconic Lexan combine harvesters are a symbol of innovation in modern farming, helping farmers harvest crops more efficiently than ever before. But what makes Claas stand out in the crowded world of agricultural equipment? It's all about technology. Claas isn't just about big machines, it's about smart machines. Their commitment to precision farming or technology helps farmers maximize efficiency and minimize waste is what has kept them ahead of the curve. So it's no surprise that 160 has earned a loyal following among farmers, both in Europe and beyond. Now that we know what Claas is, let's talk about how it fits into the global agricultural machinery market. Claas isn't just a European giant. It's a significant player on the global stage. And when you look at the big picture, it's clear how important the company is for the farming industry worldwide.
Our efforts on the election and some of these issues that matter so much to so many of you. I'm talking about the economy as well. The former president, Donald Trump, today vowed to impose a 200% tariff on John Deere's imports. We'll be talking about what that means, what would that look like if implemented, if Trump wins here. Before we get into that, Trump was in Savannah, Georgia, outlining some of these economic proposals.
Directly with other major brands like John Deere, New Holland, and Kasich. These companies dominate the market, each bringing their own blend of tradition and innovation. But Claas has managed to carve out its own niche, especially in Europe, where it holds a solid position in both sales and market share. In fact, it's one of the top competitors to John Deere in several markets. While John Deere might be the go-to brand in North America, Scholastic has been steadily gaining ground across the Atlantic, particularly in Germany, France, and even in parts of North America. This international reach is key to understanding the full impact of trade policies like the ones Trump implemented. Claas isn't just selling machines, it's shaping how farming works in many parts of the world, whether it's large-scale harvesting in the US or precision farming in Eastern Europe. Claas machines are central to the agricultural landscape, and that's exactly what made them vulnerable when trade tariffs were introduced. But Claas's global role isn't just about equipment, it's about the jobs and investments tied to this company. Claas has manufacturing plants not only in Germany, but also in places like the US, Russia, and India. It has a vast supply chain that stretches across continents, so when tariffs or trade wars disrupt that flow, It's not just about increasing costs for single, it's about potential job losses, disruption of production schedules, and a ripple effect that can hit local economies hard. They're going to move a lot of their manufacturing business to Mexico. I'm just notifying John Deere right now. If you do that, we're putting a 200% tariff on everything that you want to sell into the United States, so that if I win. When Donald Trump became president of the United States in 2017, his administration introduced a wave of changes to global trade policy. One of the most significant and controversial moves was his decision to impose tariffs on a wide range of imported goods, including steel, aluminum, and agricultural machinery. The goal to protect American industries, bring jobs back to the US, and reduce the trade deficit. But while the intention might have been to protect American businesses, the actual effects were far-reaching, hitting companies all over the world, including Germany's Claas. Trump's tariffs were a response to what he viewed as unfair trade practices, particularly with China. But they didn't just impact Chinese goods. They also extended to European manufacturers, hitting high-profile companies like Claas, which exports a substantial amount of agricultural machinery to the US. It's going to be paying a 200%. They haven't started it yet. Maybe they haven't even made the final decision yet, but I think they have. John Deere is good, and anybody else that does for Claas, a company deeply embedded in international trade. This posed a serious challenge. While some American companies like John Deere would have benefited from a policy designed to favor domestic manufacturing, European companies like CLSA found themselves at a disadvantage. Claas was forced to raise its prices on products imported into the US, making their equipment more expensive for American farmers. Trump's trade war didn't just stop with tariffs on imports. It also created an atmosphere of uncertainty in the global markets. The fear of escalating trade disputes and tariffs made many companies hesitant to invest in long-term projects or expand their operations, which ultimately slowed the global economy. For SEALS, which has manufacturing plants in several countries, this uncertainty meant adjusting its global strategy to try to mitigate the effects of tariffs, even though it couldn't escape them entirely. Now let's talk about how tariffs specifically impacted Claas. The American market is one of the largest consumers of agricultural machinery, and Claas has invested heavily in that market over the years. However, with tariffs on European imports, especially those targeting machinery, it became harder for steel asked to maintain competitive pricing. This directly affected its sales in the US and forced the company to rethink its pricing strategy. Imagine a farmer in the US who has been using steel as machinery for years. They've relied on the company's advanced combine in tractors to make their operations more efficient. But with the introduction of higher tariffs, the price of a new collapsed machine suddenly jumps. The same tractor or harvester that once cost $300,000 might now cost $350,000 or more, making it a much less attractive option compared to domestic competitors like John Deere. That's the kind of pressure Claas faced as Trump's tariffs pushed their prices higher, making them less appealing to American farmers who were already dealing with rising costs in other areas.
Mexico is our largest trading partner, and if we put even a small tariff on like 10, 15%, you're talking about tens of billions of dollars, and they're not going to want to have that long. And they're strong. They can stop it if they want. They can do it if they want. They'll probably have to make a deal with the cartels because the cartels totally run Mexico, totally. It's terrible things are happening in Mexico. But we're going to put a tariff on Mexico if they don't immediately stop sending that horrible stuff into the...
What's more, many of the parts used in Claas machines are manufactured in different countries around the world. with tariffs impacting not just the final product, but also components like steel, electronics, and mechanical parts. Claas found itself dealing with higher production costs, even if they were able to keep some of their manufacturing in the US or other countries outside the tariff zone. The ripple effect of higher costs would still be felt in the overall price of their products. In short, Trump's tariffs created a situation where Claas had to balance maintaining global competitiveness while trying to keep costs under control. It wasn't an easy feat. So where does Claas stand when it comes to innovation? The company has built its reputation on being a leader in agricultural machinery, constantly pushing the envelope in terms of technological advancement. From smart farming solutions like telematics and machine learning to groundbreaking innovations in machinery design, Claas has always been a company that embraces the future. It's a brand that's known for helping farmers stay ahead of the curve, integrating technology into their machinery to boost efficiency and productivity. But while Silage was busy focusing on the future, Trump's protectionist policies were turning the global trade landscape into something that felt stuck in the past. While Silage sought to break new ground with innovative machinery, Trump was taking a step back and focusing on safeguarding domestic industries from foreign competition. For a global company like Claas, this was a clash of philosophies. Innovation in farming machinery is no small feat. It requires substantial investment in research and development R&D, something Claas has been doing for decades. The company's innovation strategy revolves around creating machines that aren't just bigger and faster, but smarter. Their combine harvester cars are equipped with advanced sensors, autonomous capabilities, and machine learning systems that can analyze crop conditions and optimize harvesting in real time. Their tractors are no different, offering everything from automated driving systems to fuel-efficient engines. These are the kinds of advancements that have made Claas a global leader in the industry, not just a competitor. However, the protectionist policies pushed by Trump under the America First umbrella were working in the opposite direction. Instead of encouraging innovation and free trade, these policies incentivized American farmers and businesses to buy domestic products that might not have the same technological edge or innovative capabilities as classic machinery. For a company that thrives on cutting-edge tech, this posed a serious challenge. While Trump's policies were undoubtedly designed to benefit American companies, they inadvertently made it harder for companies like Claas to compete with tariffs on high-tech agricultural machinery. It became more difficult for US farmers to access the kind of innovation that companies like Claas were bringing to the table. And that's a problem because farming at its core is about efficiency and productivity. It's not just about clay, as though Trump's tariffs had a domino effect on the entire agricultural machinery sector. And that includes companies like John Deere and Case IH, which also rely on global supply chains for their parts. While these American companies might have benefited from the tariffs in the short term, the long-term impact was less clear by isolating the US market from international competition. Trump's policies might have hindered innovation across the board. In fact, the protectionism that Trump pushed didn't just hurt foreign companies like Silage, it had the potential to hurt American farmers too, by making international machinery more expensive. US farmers faced higher costs, which would eventually drive up food prices and hurt the economy overall. It's a classic case of unintended consequences, protecting one industry at the expense of others. The larger issue here is the balance between free trade and protectionism. Claas, with its long history of innovation, represents the global approach to competition, open markets, international collaboration, and technological advancement. On the other hand, Trump's protectionism represents a step back into a world of trade barriers and tariffs. While it's clear that tariffs were designed to protect U.S. interests, they ultimately stifle global competition, which is what drives progress and innovation in any industry. In a world where farming and agricultural machinery play such a vital role in feeding billions of people, the introduction of tariffs and trade wars threatens not just a single company like Claas, but the very future of how we produce food. Whether or not you agree with Trump's protectionist policies, one thing is clear: they had a significant impact on companies like Claas, their innovation efforts, and their ability to compete in a global market. So how did this all play out for Claas in the long run? Stay tuned, because we'll dive deeper into how they navigated the storm and whether they managed to maintain their position as a global leader in farming technology. As Trump's administration ramped up its tariff policies, one of the biggest questions was what impact would this have on the U.S. economy, especially along the borders. The U.S.-Mexico and U.S.-Canada borders are vital trade corridors for a vast array of goods, including agricultural machinery. In many ways, these borders serve as lifelines for companies that rely on cross-border trade like seals. They also connect industries that depend on the free flow of materials and finished products. But when Trump imposed tariffs, it created an immediate ripple effect that impacted both sides of these borders. For U.S. farmers and manufacturers, particularly those who relied on imported machinery and components from companies like Claas, the introduction of tariffs meant higher costs. In many cases, U.S. businesses were forced to look elsewhere for alternatives, either paying higher prices for imported goods or investing in domestic manufacturing, often at the expense of innovation and quality. Claas was caught in the middle of this situation, with parts and machinery manufactured in Europe. The company had to contend with higher prices for its products as the U.S. slapped tariffs on European imports. The broader impact was seen in industries that depended on imported goods. U.S. businesses that straddle the line between importing and exporting goods to neighboring countries faced uncertainty. Small towns near the U.S.-Mexico border, for example, felt the brunt of these economic changes. These areas often rely on cross-border trade for jobs and economic growth, with tariffs slowing down trade and increasing costs for businesses. Communities that depended on border trade faced a loss of income, jobs, and even essential supplies. The impact wasn't limited to agricultural machinery either. All sorts of goods and materials were affected, from steel to electronics to raw agricultural products. If a farmer needed parts to fix a Claas harvester but couldn't afford the increased costs due to tariffs, it could lead to delays in getting that machinery back into operation. This, in turn, impacted not only farmers but also workers in border communities who rely on the smooth movement of goods across the U.S., Mexico, and U.S.-Canada borders. In short, the tariffs had a far-reaching effect on the economy, hitting both the agricultural sector and the border regions, where trade is a primary economic driver. As we'll see, Trump's tariffs weren't just about boosting American manufacturing. They also disrupted the intricate web of global trade, leading to unintended consequences for U.S. businesses, workers, and communities. Has given us an unprecedented and powerful mandate. On the campaign trail, he offered many ideas for the future. Other countries are going to finally, after 75 years, pay us back for all that we've done for the world. We will drill, baby. Let's break down how Trump's tariff policies could have wider consequences for the borders, particularly for international trade and commerce. The U.S. has long been a destination for imported machinery, with companies like Claas setting up a strong foothold in the American market. However, tariffs put in place by Trump served as a trade barrier, forcing Claas and other international companies into a position where they had to either absorb the higher costs or pass them on to consumers. Now imagine the scenario for businesses. In the US, Mexico, and US-Canada borders, many manufacturers in these areas, which rely heavily on global supply chains, suddenly found themselves facing supply chain disruptions. Parts for tractors, harvesters, and other agricultural machinery, many of which come from places like, were subjected to tariffs, making them harder and more expensive to obtain. If the tariffs had been prolonged or expanded to other countries, it could have seriously impacted production timelines, forcing manufacturers to scale back or even halt operations. This would have led to delays not only in US markets, but also in the global supply chain. International partners, including those in Europe and Asia, would have felt the pressure as well, potentially escalating tensions at the borders. In fact, Trump's tariffs inadvertently exposed the vulnerability of the modern supply chain, where goods cross borders daily in a smooth, coordinated manner. When that flow is disrupted by tariffs and trade restrictions, the entire system faces consequences. Moreover, trade barriers didn't just disrupt the flow of agricultural machinery. Trump's tariffs also created confusion about trade rules at the border. With constant changes in tariff regulations and trade agreements, businesses weren't sure if their goods would be hit with additional costs or if they would be delayed at customs. Border agencies tasked with enforcing these tariffs had to adapt quickly, leading to confusion and slowdowns at the border. This added complexity slowed the movement of goods, which in turn affected not just Claas, but all companies that depended on imports and exports. Even though Trump tried to create a favorable environment for US manufacturers by reducing foreign competition, the unintended consequences were clear. At the border, delays and higher costs forced US businesses to rethink their operations, and many were left scrambling for solutions. When it comes to trade policies, there's a constant back and forth between protectionism and globalization. Protectionism, essentially putting up trade barriers to protect domestic industries, was a cornerstone of Trump's economic policy. His focus was on America first, aiming to boost domestic manufacturing, reduce reliance on imports, and protect American jobs. For Trump, the theory was that by imposing tariffs, he could level the playing field for US companies by making foreign-made goods more expensive, thus encouraging people to buy American-made products. But while the protectionist agenda gained momentum under Trump, the flip side of the argument was globalization. The idea behind globalization is that free trade without barriers allows businesses to thrive on an international scale. It encourages innovation, reduces costs, and fosters competition. In Claas's case, the company's reliance on a global supply chain and open trade agreements allowed it to stay competitive and offer advanced machinery to farmers around the world. If Trump's tariffs stifled this global trade, the entire industry would lose the ability to innovate and compete at the highest level. The question remains, which approach is better for long-term economic growth? While protectionism might provide temporary relief to domestic manufacturers, it can also hurt consumers in the long run with higher prices on imported goods, like agricultural machinery from clay. Unless US farmers faced higher costs, leading to financial strain. Meanwhile, innovation could slow down, as companies are forced to focus on surviving the economic pressures of tariffs rather than developing the next generation of machinery. On the other hand, the more globalized approach allows companies to tap into resources, expertise, and technology from all over the world, which in turn benefits consumers. For Class A, company that specializes in innovation. As glass navigates the changing tides of trade, one thing remains clear. The global economy is in constant flux, and companies must be ready to adapt or risk being left behind. If you found this video insightful, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more deep dives into global issues and the stories shaping our world.